The alarm bells screamed through the corridors of the Galactic Defense Station as Admiral Kethvar watched the tactical display with growing horror. 300 enemy ships, massive dreadnoughts from the Zephyrian Empire, had just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. Their dark hulls bristled with weapons that could crack planets in half. "How many ships do we have in the sector?" Kethvar asked, his forearms trembling as he gripped the command rail. 47 vessels, Admiral," replied his communications officer, a nervous Tellurian whose scales had turned pale with fear. "The nearest reinforcements are 6 days away." Kethvar's mandibles clicked in frustration. The Galactic Coalition had been caught completely off guard. Intelligence reports suggested the Zephyrians were still months away from launching their offensive. Now they faced the largest invasion fleet ever assembled, and the Coalition's most important research facility, containing decades of scientific breakthroughs, sat defenseless on Kepler Prime below. The enemy fleet began its approach, moving in perfect formation. Each ship was a kilometer long, their weapons charging with an ominous blue glow. The Coalition vessels looked like insects compared to these metal monsters. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Earth Command," the communications officer announced, his voice cracking. "Earth?" Kethvar's compound eyes widened. What could those primitive humans possibly want at a time like this? Humans had only joined the Galactic Coalition 5 years ago. Their technology was laughably outdated. They still used chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. Most Coalition species considered them barely above Stone Age savages. They had been admitted to the Coalition purely out of pity, given a single vote in the Council and allowed to maintain one small embassy ship. "They're requesting permission to assist in the defense," the officer said, barely containing his disbelief. Several of Kethvar's bridge crew burst into nervous laughter. The idea of humans helping in a space battle was absurd. Their largest warship was smaller than a Coalition transport vessel. "Tell them to stay out of the way," Kethvar ordered, turning his attention back to the approaching doom. "We have enough problems without babysitting primitives." But the human transmission continued. "Admiral, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Defiance. We're already en route to your position. ETA 12 minutes. "Impossible," Kethvar muttered. "Their ship was docked at the station. How could they—" The tactical display suddenly showed a new contact appearing near the edge of the system, a single blip, moving at impossible speed toward the massive Zephyrian fleet. "Sir, that vessel is traveling at 0.97 light speed," the sensor operator gasped. That's impossible without a hyperspace drive, and they're in normal space." Kethvar stared at the display. Human ships used primitive fusion drives. They shouldn't be able to achieve anything close to light speed. Yet there it was, a single small ship racing towards certain destruction. "Open a channel to the human vessel," he ordered. "Captain Chen, your ship cannot possibly survive an engagement with the Zephyrian fleet. You have 47 Coalition vessels and 300 enemy ships. Please maintain safe distance." Captain Chen's voice crackled through the speakers, calm and steady despite facing overwhelming odds. "Understood, Admiral, but sometimes 47 plus 1 makes all the difference." The human ship continued its impossible acceleration, now approaching the Zephyrian fleet's outer perimeter. On the display, the massive enemy ships began turning their weapons toward this new threat, probably amused by such audacity. "What are they planning?" whispered Kethvar's tactical officer, a brilliant strategist from the crystal-based Nexari race. "A suicide run. It would barely scratch their shields." Then something extraordinary happened. The human ship began broadcasting on all frequencies, not a surrender, not a desperate plea, but what sounded like music. Strange, rhythmic sounds with a driving beat that somehow made Kethvar's 3 hearts pound faster. "What is that noise?" he demanded. "According to our translation matrix, it's called rock music," the communications officer replied, looking confused. The humans appeared to be singing. The song echoed through space as the tiny human vessel approached the first line of Zephyrian dreadnoughts. The enemy ships opened fire, unleashing enough energy to vaporize a moon. Brilliant streams of plasma and particle beams converged on the human ship's position, but the ship wasn't there anymore. "Where did it go?" Kethvar shouted, scanning the display frantically. "I'm not sure, sir. It's like it just shifted slightly to the left. No, wait. There it is, behind the lead dreadnought." The human vessel had somehow slipped through the massive barrage, like water through a net. Now it was moving between the enemy ships, weaving through their formation with impossible precision. "Their maneuverability is beyond anything in our databases," the tactical officer reported, his crystalline voice filled with awe. "Look at those course corrections. No biological crew could survive those G-forces." The Zephyrian ships tried to track the human vessel, but their massive weapons were designed for fleet battles, not dogfights. They kept hitting each other instead, their own firepower causing chaos in their ranks. Then the human ship did something that made every being on Kethvar's bridge question their understanding of physics. It stopped dead in space, from near light speed to zero in an instant, directly behind one of the enemy dreadnoughts. "That should have turned their crew into paste," someone whispered. Captain Chen's voice came through the speakers again, now with a hint of excitement. "Admiral Kethvar, you might want to shield your sensors. This could get bright." The human ship's hull began to glow, not with weapons fire, but with something far more fundamental. Energy readings spiked beyond the instrument's ability to measure. "What are they doing?" Kethvar demanded. His answer came a moment later. The human ship released a pulse of pure energy that washed over the entire Zephyrian fleet. Not a weapon, exactly, but something that seemed to reach into the very structure of matter itself. Every enemy ship suddenly went dark. "Sir, the Zephyrian vessels have lost all power," the sensor operator announced in stunned disbelief. "Engines, weapons, life support, everything is offline." 300 massive warships now drifted helplessly in space, their crews trapped in metal coffins. The human vessel sat among them like a predator surveying its prey. "This is Captain Chen to Admiral Kethvar." The human's voice was now calm and professional again. "The immediate threat has been neutralized. Your ships may now approach safely to take the enemy crews prisoner." Kethvar's mandibles hung open in shock. A single human ship, a vessel that shouldn't have been able to scratch the paint on a Zephyrian hull, had just defeated the largest invasion fleet in recorded history. "Captain Chen," he managed to say, what did you just do?" "Well, Admiral, it's a bit complicated. You see, while the rest of the galaxy was perfecting energy shields and plasma weapons, we humans were working on something different. We discovered that consciousness itself can interact with quantum fields in ways that conventional physics doesn't account for." The bridge crew exchanged bewildered looks. Quantum consciousness. That was theoretical nonsense, wasn't it? "The thing is," Chen continued, "humans have a unique neural structure that allows us to interface directly with quantum probability. We can essentially convince reality to work differently in localized areas. It took us 5 years to build a ship that could amplify and focus this ability." "You're saying you changed the laws of physics?" Kethvar asked weakly. "More like we politely suggested to the universe that those Zephyrian ships might be happier if their electronics stopped working for a while. The universe agreed. As coalition ships moved in to secure the disabled enemy vessels, Kethvar stared at the human ship on his display. Humanity had just revealed capabilities that redefined what was possible in the galaxy. And they had done it while playing music. "Captain Chen," he said slowly, "I believe the Galactic Coalition needs to have a very serious conversation with Earth Command." "Looking forward to it, Admiral. But first, Would you like to know about our other ships? The Defiance is just our prototype. Kethvar felt all three of his hearts skip a beat. Other ships? How many other impossible things could these humans do? The galaxy had just discovered that the species they had dismissed as primitives might be the most advanced civilization that had ever existed, and humanity had been keeping very quiet about what they could really do. The music from the human ship continued to echo through space, a celebration of victory that would reshape the balance of power among the stars forever. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 3 days after what historians would later call the Kepler Incident. Representatives from over 200 species gathered in the massive crystal chamber on Nexus Prime, their voices creating a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and growls that the translation matrix struggled to process. Admiral Kethvar stood at the center podium, his report still fresh in everyone's minds. Around him, some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy tried to process what they had just heard. "You're telling us," rumbled Chancellor Voxon, the massive rock-like leader of the Granite Coalition, "that a single human ship disabled 300 Zephyrian dreadnoughts without firing a shot?" "That is correct," Kethvar replied, his forearms gesturing nervously. "I witnessed it myself. They used some form of quantum consciousness manipulation to simply turn off the enemy fleet." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. High Counselor Zefina, whose serpentine species had spent millennia perfecting shield technology, raised her elegant head. "Impossible. Our scientists have studied quantum consciousness for generations. It's purely theoretical." "Perhaps," said a new voice from the gallery. "Your scientists weren't asking the right questions." Every head in the chamber turned toward the human delegation. Captain Sarah Chen sat calmly beside Earth's ambassador, Dr. James Wright, a thin man with graying hair who had always been dismissed as harmless by the other species. "Captain Chen!" Chancellor Voxon's voice shook the air. "Would you care to explain exactly what happened at Kepler?" Chen stood slowly, her movements casual compared to the formal postures of the other species. "Certainly. Though I should mention that the demonstration at Kepler was actually quite restrained. We didn't want to cause any permanent damage." "Restrained?" Counselor Zefina's scales rippled with disbelief. "You disabled an entire fleet." "Yes, but we could have done much more," Dr. Wright interjected, speaking for the first time. "You see, the human brain evolved in a very unusual way. While most species developed intelligence to manipulate their environment through tools and technology, humans developed something additional: the ability to manipulate probability itself through focused consciousness." The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of translation devices. Dr. Wright continued, "What you call magic, we call applied quantum psychology. Human belief, when properly focused and amplified, can actually influence the quantum foam that underlies all reality. We've known this for centuries, but we kept it quiet." "Why?" demanded Admiral Kethvar. "Why hide such incredible abilities?" Chen smiled grimly. "Because historically, when humans discover they can do something impossible, they tend to get very good at it very quickly. And that usually ends badly for everyone else." She activated a holographic display showing Earth's history. Images flashed past: wars, conquests, technological revolutions happening at breakneck speed. Humans have a saying, "Necessity is the mother of invention." When we're threatened, we don't just develop better weapons. We invent entirely new ways of thinking about warfare. The Zephyrian invasion was the first time we felt truly threatened since joining the Coalition. "So you built a ship that breaks physics?" Counselor Zefina said flatly. "We built a ship that works with physics in ways you haven't discovered yet," Wright corrected. "The Defiance isn't actually a warship. It's a research vessel designed to study quantum consciousness. The fact that it can disable enemy fleets is just a side effect." High Priest Mordan of the Ethereal Assembly leaned forward, his translucent form shimmering. "Show us. Prove these claims." Chen looked at Wright, who nodded slightly. "Very well, but we'll need to move to a safe distance from the station." An hour later, the Council's observation fleet hung in space 50,000 kilometers from Nexus Prime. The Defiance sat alone in the void between them and the planet, looking insignificant compared to the massive Council vessels surrounding it. "Begin the demonstration," Chancellor Voxon ordered. Chen's voice came through the communications array. "Initiating quantum consciousness field. Please observe the asteroid belt in Sector 7. Every sensor in the observation fleet turned toward the designated area, where thousands of rocks tumbled slowly through space. Some were as large as buildings, others mere pebbles. "What exactly are we supposed to?" Counselor Zafina began. The asteroid stopped moving, not slowed down, stopped completely. Every single rock in the belt simply hung motionless in space, defying every law of orbital mechanics. "Impossible," whispered Admiral Kethvar. "Those asteroids have been in motion for millions of years." "Now watch this," Chen said. The asteroids began to move again, but not in their original orbits. Instead, they slowly arranged themselves into perfect geometric patterns, circles, squares, spirals that stretched across thousands of kilometers of space. "We're not using any technology you would recognize," Chen explained as the cosmic dance continued. "We're simply asking the universe to consider alternative arrangements of matter and energy. The universe, it turns out, is quite agreeable when you know how to ask properly." The demonstration reached its climax when the asteroids formed letters spelling out "Hello" in perfect alignment, each rock precisely positioned despite the vast distances involved. Then, as quickly as it had begun, everything returned to normal. The asteroids resumed their ancient orbits as if nothing had happened. The observation fleet hung in stunned silence. "How many humans can do this?" Chancellor Voxon finally asked. "Currently, about 8 billion, Wright replied casually. "Though most of them don't know it yet. We've been teaching quantum consciousness techniques disguised as meditation, positive thinking, and creative visualization for decades. We wanted our species to be ready." "Ready for what?" demanded High Priest Mordan. "For the responsibility that comes with this kind of power," Chen answered. "You see, the ability to manipulate reality through consciousness isn't unique to humans. Every species has the potential, but it requires a very specific type of mental development, one that balances individual will with collective responsibility." She paused, letting that sink in. "Most species develop technology to solve their problems. Humans developed something different. We learned to change the problems themselves. But that kind of power can corrupt absolutely if it's not balanced by wisdom." Dr. Wright activated another display showing various human philosophical and spiritual traditions. For thousands of years, human cultures have been developing mental disciplines designed to prevent the abuse of consciousness manipulation. Buddhism, Stoicism, various forms of ethical philosophy, they weren't just belief systems, they were training programs. "Training for what?" Admiral Kethvar asked. "Training to become responsible cosmic citizens," Chen replied. "Because once you can change reality with your thoughts, the only thing standing between order and chaos is your own moral development." The council chamber was so quiet that the soft hum of life support systems seemed deafening. Chancellor Voxon was the first to speak. "Captain Chen, are you saying that humanity has been preparing for this moment for millennia?" "In a way, yes. We knew that eventually we would encounter other species with advanced technology. We also knew that our quantum consciousness abilities would eventually be discovered, so we spent thousands of years learning how to be worthy of such power." "And now?" Counselor Zafina's voice was barely a whisper. Chen and Wright exchanged glances. Then Chen smiled. Not the confident smile of a superior being, but the warm smile of someone offering friendship. Now we'd like to teach you, all of you, because the universe is vast and full of wonders we haven't even imagined yet, and it would be much more interesting to explore it together. She gestured toward the stars visible through the chamber's crystal dome. The Zephyrian Empire isn't the only threat out there. There are forces in the galaxy that even humans with quantum consciousness can't handle alone. But together we might be able to face anything. The silence stretched for long minutes as representatives from across the galaxy contemplated a future where the fundamental nature of reality itself could be reshaped by properly trained minds. Finally, High Priest Mordaunt spoke, his ethereal voice filled with wonder. "You're offering to teach us to become gods." Chen shook her head. "We're offering to teach you to become fully conscious beings. There's a difference." "What difference?" asked Chancellor Voxen. "Gods create reality for their own purposes," Wright explained. "Conscious beings create reality in harmony with the greater good of all existence. The choice of which one you become is yours." As the council session continued into the night, one thing became clear. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had just offered to share the ultimate power, the ability to reshape existence itself through will and consciousness. But first, every species would have to prove they were wise enough to handle such responsibility. The real test was just beginning. 6 months after the Galactic Council meeting, the universe had become a very different place. Training centers for quantum consciousness development had been established on dozens of worlds, each one designed specifically for the unique neural architecture of different species. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Harmony Station, watching as ships from across the galaxy practiced maneuvers that would have been impossible just a year ago. A Tellurian cruiser phased through solid asteroids, while a Granite Coalition vessel temporarily increased its mass to create localized gravity wells. "Remarkable progress," commented Master Liu Wei, the elderly human monk who had become the galaxy's foremost teacher of quantum consciousness. His weathered face carried the wisdom of decades spent exploring the boundaries of human potential. "Some species are adapting faster than expected," Chen agreed, noting a group of young Nexari students who had learned to communicate directly through quantum entanglement. The crystal-based species seem particularly gifted at this. "Their minds already exist partially in quantum superposition," Liu Wei explained. "For them, consciousness manipulation is more natural than it is for most biologicals." Below them, the training exercises continued. But these were no longer just about individual ability. The real breakthrough had come when different species learned to link their quantum consciousness fields together, creating collective effects that exceeded anything humans could achieve alone. Chen's communication device chimed with an urgent message. She read it quickly, her expression growing serious. "What is it?" Liu Wei asked. "Long-range sensors have detected something approaching from outside the galaxy. It's big, really big." They hurried to the station's command center, where Admiral Kethvar was coordinating the response. The Galactic Coalition had changed dramatically over the past 6 months. Species that had been rivals for millennia now worked together as their shared training and consciousness development had broken down old barriers. "Report," Chen requested as she entered. "Unknown vessel approaching from intergalactic space," Kethvar announced, his 4 arms working multiple control interfaces simultaneously. "Size estimate, approximately 1/10 the mass of our moon." The main display showed a dark angular structure that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. As they watched, smaller objects began separating from the main body, each one larger than the biggest dreadnought in the Coalition fleet. "Origin?" asked Dr. Wright, who had arrived with a team of Earth's top quantum physicists. "Unknown, but we're detecting quantum signatures unlike anything in our databases," Kethvar replied. The ship appears to exist in multiple probability states simultaneously. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. It's using quantum consciousness manipulation, but not like anything we've taught. Master Liu Wei approached the display, studying the readings with growing concern. This is not consciousness working in harmony with reality. This is consciousness trying to dominate reality itself. The alien vessel continued its approach, and smaller ships began deploying in formations that defied standard tactical doctrine. They moved in patterns that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions, appearing and disappearing from normal space at will. "Incoming transmission," announced the communications officer. The voice that emerged from the speakers was unlike anything they had heard before, multiple tones speaking in perfect harmony, but with an underlying coldness that made everyone in the room uncomfortable. "Inhabitants of this galaxy, we are the Architect Collective. We have observed your recent attempts to manipulate fundamental reality. Such abilities belong to entities of higher development. You will surrender these capabilities or be eliminated." Silence filled the command center as the implications sank in. "They want us to give up quantum consciousness," whispered Counselor Zafina, who had been participating via holographic link. "They don't just want us to give it up," Chen realized. "They want to be the only ones who have it." Admiral Kethvar activated the general communication array. "Unknown vessel. This is Admiral Kethvar of the Galactic Coalition. We welcome peaceful contact, but cannot comply with your demands. These abilities are not ours to surrender. They belong to consciousness itself." The response was immediate and terrifying. The space around one of the Coalition's outer patrol ships suddenly twisted, and the vessel simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, erased from reality as if it had never been built. "They didn't even use weapons," Dr. Wright said, his face pale as he studied the readings. "They convinced the universe that our ship never existed in the first place." "How many ships are we facing?" Chen asked. "Over 1,000 have deployed so far," Kethvar reported, "but that's not the worst part. Each ship appears to be operated by a collective consciousness, millions of minds working as one." Chen activated her personal communication to Earth Command. "Priority Alpha. Initiate Project Beacon immediately." "Project Beacon?" Liu Wei raised an eyebrow. "Something we hoped we'd never need to use," Chen replied grimly. "But if the Architect Collective wants to play with reality manipulation, we need to show them what humans can do when we're really motivated." Over the next hour, reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Earth ships were taking off from every human colony and outpost, but these weren't military vessels. They were civilian craft, freighters, passenger ships, even personal shuttles, all heading for predetermined coordinates throughout Coalition space. "What are they doing?" demanded Chancellor Voxun from his capital world. "Creating a network," Chen explained. "Every human ship contains a quantum consciousness amplifier. When they reach their positions, they'll link together into a galaxy-spanning consciousness grid." The Architect Collective's ultimatum expired, and their assault began in earnest. Coalition fleets engaged the invaders, but conventional tactics proved useless. The enemy ships phased in and out of reality, struck from impossible angles, and seemed to anticipate every move before it was made. But then the human ships reached their positions. The effect was immediate and stunning. Across the galaxy, human voices began to speak in unison, not through technology, but through direct quantum consciousness connection. 8 billion minds joined by hundreds of millions of trained Coalition allies, all focused on a single purpose. The Architect Collective's next wave of attacks simply missed. Their reality-bending weapons struck empty space where Coalition ships had been moments before. Their phasing technology stopped working. Their collective consciousness found itself opposed by something they had never encountered before. "What's happening?" the Architect Collective demanded, their harmonious voice now showing signs of strain. Master Liu Wei stepped forward to respond, his quiet voice somehow carrying across space to reach every ship in both fleets. You are experiencing something your species has never encountered. Consciousness that works through cooperation rather than domination. On the tactical display, the true scope of humanity's preparation became clear. Every human settlement, every colony, every outpost had been positioned according to a careful plan developed over centuries. Together, they formed a three-dimensional mandala encompassing the entire galaxy, a massive pattern designed to channel and amplify quantum consciousness on an unprecedented scale. You see, Chen explained to the collective, you've been treating consciousness like a weapon to be wielded by superior beings. But consciousness isn't meant to dominate reality, it's meant to dance with it. The human network began to demonstrate. Stars that had been dimming due to cosmic dust suddenly blazed brighter. Dead worlds in the outer rim began to show signs of life. The galaxy itself seemed to awaken, as if remembering something it had forgotten long ago. We're not trying to control reality, Dr. Wright added. We're trying to heal it. The Architect Collective's ships began to falter. Their technology, based on forcing reality to conform to their will, couldn't function in an environment where reality itself was becoming more flexible and alive. This is impossible. The collective's voice now carried notes of confusion and fear. Consciousness cannot affect matter on such a scale. Not alone, Liu Wei agreed, but consciousness working together in harmony, guided by wisdom and compassion, that can reshape the very foundations of existence. The demonstration reached its climax when the human network began to restore the ships that had been erased from reality. The coalition vessels reappeared, their crews blinking in confusion as they found themselves back among the living. We offer you a choice, Chen announced to the Architect Collective. Continue trying to dominate reality and watch your technology fail as the universe itself begins to resist your efforts. Or learn to work with consciousness as a creative force instead of a weapon. The alien fleet hung motionless for long minutes as the collective processed this unprecedented turn of events. Finally, their response came. But this time, the harmonious voice carried a note of genuine curiosity instead of cold authority. You would teach us, even after we threatened your existence? Especially because you threatened our existence, Liu Wei replied with gentle wisdom. Fear is what makes consciousness seek domination. Understanding is what allows it to create instead. The first Architect vessel broke formation, approaching the coalition fleet with its weapons powered down. Then another. Soon the entire invasion force was requesting permission to dock and learn. Captain Chen looked out at the stars, now brighter than they had been in millions of years, and smiled. The galaxy had just learned its most important lesson. That true power came not from the ability to control reality, but from the wisdom to nurture it. And somewhere in the vast network of human consciousness that spanned the galaxy, 8 billion minds whispered a simple truth that would echo through cosmic history. We are all connected, we are all one, and together we can make the universe a home worthy of consciousness itself. The age of cosmic cooperation had begun, and it would reshape not just the galaxy, but the very nature of existence throughout the universe. Humanity had kept its greatest promise, not to become gods, but to help all consciousness learn to create reality together as partners in the greatest dance ever conceived.